And but the worst part of it came at the end when they said, now, tomorrow night, which would be tonight, you need to tell the story that we just wrangled out of you. And I tell you all this to say that whatever comes out is their fault. Because after I left class, I went home to work on it, well, to Kent's home to work on it, which is a really difficult place to work. And quickly fell asleep. Then I went back today to work on it and quickly fell asleep. So this is an unwritten, unrehearsed, barely conceived of story, and it's all my advanced classes' fault. Where's the key? I called from underneath the truck. I heard the jingling of a ring of keys, and then I heard the rustling of papers in the glove box, and then in the console opening and closing, and then a pause. And then Jill says from the cab, I think it's in the junk drawer in the kitchen in Phoenix. We had driven 6.5 hours from Phoenix to the north rim of the Grand Canyon. Now we were in the middle of the Kaibab Plateau on some unnamed Forest Service road that I couldn't even find on the USGS map. I think we were about a mile from the trailhead, but I'm not sure at this point. We realized that we're not going to be able to change the tire that had just gone flat because she had locked the spare tire underneath the truck. We decided the best thing for the four of us to do was just to spend the night there. The next morning we'd get up, walk the mile, hopefully it was a mile to the trailhead, do our 25-mile backpacking trip, and deal with the truck when we got back out. Otherwise, we'd miss our trip, and we'd worked hard planning this trip. For 3 out of the 4, it was the first ever backpacking trip, and it was a big deal. None of us had ever been to the Grand Canyon before. So we set up camp there, and we had a nice supper and went to bed early. I woke up at midnight when I heard a car coming down the road. I jumped out of my sleeping bag and threw on my jeans. My waist-length hair and my nipple-length beard coming out of that nylon sleeping bag could only be described as a hair-nado. As I, shoeless and shirtless, ran out in the middle of the road, waving my arms. The car stopped about 50 yards in front of me, inched forward a little bit, and then started backing up. I ran towards it saying, no, come back. And they inched forward, got a few feet from me, and rolled down the passenger window about an inch. I explained to them the situation, and as soon as I did, the window came down, and the man in his late 20s sitting in the driver's seat declared, "Have no fear, the Boy Scouts are here." 4 men, all in their mid to late 20s, jumped out of the car. One of them ran around the back, opened the trunk, pulled out the biggest toolbox I'd ever seen in my life, ran back, placed it on the ground, and then they all 4 crawled underneath the truck. I heard clanging and sawing and banging and crying, and somehow, miraculously, moments later, I heard the thud of a padlock land on the dirt road, and then a tire shortly there behind it. They came out from under the truck, and I thanked them and reached for the tire, and they said, "No, wild man." This is a job for the Boy Scouts. In no time, they had the flat tire removed and the new fresh tire on, and the old tire lifted up underneath the bed of the truck. We thanked them, and they went on their way. Next morning, we got up early. We had our breakfast, packed up our camp, and we headed on to the trailhead. When we got there, I was surprised to see a half a dozen cars in this remote backcountry trailhead. One of them we recognized because of the Boy Scouts of America sticker on the back of it. We began the slow descent down into the canyon. Christine, one of the women with us, who I was dating at the time, realized in the first couple of miles that the brand new boots she had gotten were improperly broken in, if at all, and perhaps a size too small, and before long she could barely walk. We got her boots off, and her 2 big toenails were both already black. One was bloodied, and fortunately, though, we had sandals that we strapped on her, and she had to do the remaining 10 plus miles down to the bottom of the canyon wearing sandals with her 40-pound pack. So the going was very slow, but we made our way down carefully and cautiously, taking care of Christine along the way. It was dark by the time we got down to the Thunder River. We stopped at the beautiful waterfall where it sprung out of the rock and refilled our water bottles, and then we walked into the designated camping zone. Clearly, all the people from those 6 cars at the trailhead were there, because it was a sea of tents. And we walked the length of it and walked back, and there was nowhere for us to set up camp. I suggested that we hike back up to the falls, because there was a flat area there, and we could camp there for the night and maybe find a place down here the next night if some people left. As soon as I began speaking, though, a voice came from the near campsite. "Is that you, wild man?" "Boy Scouts?" I said. One of them came running out and said, you need a place to camp?" "Yeah, I'm afraid we do." "Well, we'll make some room." They had spread out their 2 tents in a rather large area in a way that nobody else could camp there. And so they unstaked them both and slid them around to one side of the fire, leaving room for our 2 tents on the other side. We set up, had a late meal. The Boy Scouts had brought everything for making s'mores, and they invited us to the fire, and we had s'mores that night and shared stories around the fire. The next morning, we were boiling water for our ramen when one of the Boy Scouts said, "Wild man, come over here and join us." They had brought eggs and bacon. We didn't know that was legal in the backcountry. So we had a nice big meal with them, and then we went our way and they went theirs. We day hiked for the day, went down to the Colorado River, went for a wonderful swim. It was a beautiful day. That night we sat up late as a nearly full moon crossed over the canyon, and we watched the shadows play on the rocks, and we discovered why they call the Grand Canyon the house of light and stone. And it was just a magical place. And 2 days we spent down there doing that. On the second morning, most of the other people left, leaving just us and the Boy Scouts. So we picked up our camp and moved it down a little ways so that they would have some room to themselves. It was later that day when I was sitting by the fire, and a couple of the scouts were there, and I heard them conversing about the hike out. And I started to worry a little bit. They said, the hike out's going to take a lot longer than the hike in, and I thought about Christine's foot. And they said, you're going to need a lot more water going out than you needed coming in. We're planning on hiking up above the falls and camping there tonight, and then we'll leave real early in the morning and head on out. So I gathered our group together, and we discussed possibilities and decided that rather than hike out with the Boy Scouts, we would sleep till about 2 in the morning and then begin our hike out then. That way it would be cool, we'd have plenty of water, everything would be fine. So sure enough, we got up at 2, we had a quick ramen breakfast, we packed our packs, and we started out. It was about 3:30 by the time we got to the falls and filled up our water bottles. Just above the falls, we found the Boy Scouts asleep there. They hadn't bothered setting up their tents. They were just sleeping out under the stars. As we hiked by, we disturbed a rattlesnake. We thought it would be wise to wake them. We did, and they showed us how to lift the snake with some sticks and move it out of the way. When the sun rose, we decided to stop for breakfast, and we had some more ramen. Because when you start at 2 in the morning, you need 2 breakfasts. And we had our breakfast and decided to rest there a little bit, and that's when the Boy Scouts caught back up with us. "How are you doing?" they asked. I said, "Well, I think we'll be fine. It's not too hot, and we seem to have plenty of water." They said, "Well, it's going to keep getting hotter. You better get moving." So we packed up, and soon we were back on the trail. But again, moving very slow, especially with Christine and her sandals. Midday, we still have several miles to go. It's steep going out, and our water was getting low. We weren't talking about it, but I know we were all worried about it. And I suspect we were all thinking to ourselves of possible ways we might deal with this. When I pulled out my last water bottle, a little half-liter bottle, I realized we were in trouble. And I was about to suggest that we empty my pack, put all the empty bottles in it, and I would run back to the falls, fill them up and run back. It would mean we'd have to spend the night there in the desert again, but we'd have plenty of water. Just as I was thinking that, I saw something white kind of flutter in a breeze up ahead, and I went up to I found a piece of paper stuck on a thorn on one of those desert trees, and I pulled it off and unfolded it. And it said, "Please use only in case of emergency. Compliments of the Boy Scouts." I looked down at the base of the tree. There's 2 one-gallon water jugs filled to the top with water. There was enough water there that we were able to fill up all of our bottles that weren't empty and leave a half of a gallon, I guess that'd be a quarter of a gallon, for whoever might need it later. And we stuck the note back on the tree, and that was enough water for us to make it back up to the rim. When we got there, all the cars were gone except for our truck, and thankfully there was no flat tire. But when we walked up to it, there was a note on the windshield, a piece of paper that we pulled off, and we opened it up, and it said, "Dear wild man, be prepared." Love the Boy Scouts. Folded it up and put it in my pocket, and we climbed in the truck and started down the road. And I turned to John, who was sitting next to me, and I said, "Were you ever a scout when you were a kid?" He said, "No, what about you?" I said, "Well, I did 1 year of Cub Scouts, but I kind of got tired of all the crafty stuff. You know, we had a den mother who made us paint bricks and cut out flowers from wallpaper and stick. It just wasn't quite what I expected scouting to be. So I quit. But I said, I think when we get back to Phoenix, I'm going to look them up and see if they're taking 30-year-olds.